don't think this magazine would really be valuable without the voices of our students and faculty. They are our trials, our joys, our purpose, and the way we fulfill the mission at Boston College. And so having this conversation today about the core, but particularly with faculty and students, I think makes it all the more richer. And their reflections in the magazine really are powerful, I think. The core is the heart of a Catholic Jesuit university, and the curriculum is what unites students and faculty and the mission. And we have a rather large core footprint at Boston College, but we really want students to use the core to explore not only their academic interests, but also who they will become in the world. And that is the added value of their education when they're here. So these 3 students took our enduring course classes in freshman year, and they are now seniors. And when I asked them to write their reflection pieces, each one of them just happened to choose a different enduring question course. I have to say, Perspectives, Pulse, first-year topic seminars, Portico, there are other first-year experiences that are very, very impactful on our freshmen. We just happened to choose 3 that were in these enduring questions courses. And when I reached out to their faculty to share their reflections with them, by and large, they were kind of surprised about the impact that they made in these students' lives, because in many ways, faculty feel like they're doing their jobs, but they're not just doing their jobs if just doing their jobs means bringing their whole selves, their expertise, their care, and their concern into the classroom. And so Foday, Lauren, Aidan, perhaps each of you can also just say your major or a little bit about what you're interested in. Foday, let's start with you, since you're closest to me. Can you tell us actually why you took truth-telling, the enduring question course that you took, maybe what you were expecting and what you actually found? I know.
Hi, everyone. My name is Foday. I am from Prince George's County, Maryland. I'm studying neuroscience with a minor in applied psychology and human development. And I mentioned this in my reflection, but when I came to BC, I didn't know what a Jesuit was. I have never been to a Catholic institution, and I was very science kid, gotta get it done. So I had my advising appointment over the summer with my advisor, and I had my schedule, and it was Gen Chem, and it was Calc, and it was molecules and cells, and that's the thing that you don't do. So he was like, let's look for something fun, and let's look for something different. So we were just scrolling through Eagle Apps together, and I saw the pair of classes. One was truth-telling in literature, and the other one was truth-telling in history. And I was like, what does that mean? And he said, does it fit into your schedule? And I said, yes. So I did register for both the classes, and here I am now. So obviously I had a great time. And like I said, I wasn't really sure what I was getting into when I first started, because I felt like the answers to the enduring questions in the title were just little simple. What is truth-telling in literature? It's being honest. And what's truth-telling in history? It's also being honest. And with further insight, now that I've completed the course and also 2 more years at Boston College, I have found that it is quite complicated. And I can talk more about that as we go on.
Okay, Lauren. Professor Black and I can fight it out over you, since you took enduring questions courses with us, but actually Professor Black won. So do you want to talk a little bit about the course you took, but also when you share this, when you came into Boston College, you had done pretty well academically, as so many entering freshmen have done. And I think in a few of these courses, you were given pause to think about what it was all about.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren. I'm originally from Dublin, Ireland, but I live in Stamford, Connecticut. I've lived there for the past 11 years. So to answer the first part of the question, I also didn't really know what to expect when I signed up for my second enduring questions class. I just knew that I really liked the first one with Professor Shlala, and I was like, these are only offered to freshmen, so my only chance to take another one is in the second semester. So the one that had seats open was the maternity and neuroscience class. I was like, okay, we'll go with this. Don't know what to expect. It fulfilled some core requirements for me, so I was like, that's really great, but I don't really know what I'm getting myself into. And then on the first day, I was like, okay, I'm not a STEM kid. I'm not really like, I like science, find it interesting, but like equations, chemistry, not for me. So I sat there and I was like, this is going to be tough. Like, neuroscience sounds so hard. And Dr. Black walked in on the first day and passed out these fidget toys to everyone. And I was like, what is going on? We got fidget toys, we got coloring sheets, we got a journal. I was like, I feel like this is my preschool, like my first day of preschool. What is going on? And gradually throughout the semester, we learned that there's different ways that you can help your brain to learn more information and to absorb things differently. And that's why kids are learning to talk, learning to read, because they have toys and they're playing with them, and it actually opens like new neural pathways in the brain, which makes those connections possible. So I was like, wow, like I mean, we all went through that. We all learned how to read, we all learned how to speak, but it was just like eye-opening for me that I could continue that trend of like fidgeting with some Rubik's Cube or something and open new pathways in my brain. I just thought it was fascinating. So if you ask my roommate, I have fidget toys all over my desk at BC, so that's one big change from this class. I have a little Rubik's Cube. I have a few different things that I just like fidget with when I'm studying and when I'm reading new material, and it definitely does help me retain the information. So I think in that way, like, that's one way. Just being able to learn about how we learn, I thought was fascinating. Really opened my eyes that I don't have to put myself in a box, which I had been doing throughout high school. The first 2 years of high school, at my school, you had to figure out what you wanted to do. You were either a STEM kid or you weren't, and you had to figure that out. So I went into Boston College with the same attitude. Like, I'm going to take English and history because that's what I know how to do, that's what I'm good at. And I guess this course just kind of opened up a whole new world of learning material for me, which I found really fascinating.
Hey, Aidan, you took Geographies of Imperialism with me and Professor DeLong-Bas. History core, theology core, and cultural diversity. What did you think about taking those two cores, that interdisciplinarity, and adding the cultural diversity of that, being a nursing major?
Yeah, so hi everyone, my name is Aidan. I'm a senior studying nursing in the Canal School here at BC, and I'm originally from Oneonta, New York. And I took Geographies of Imperialism with Professor DeLong-Bas and Professor Shlala my first semester, freshman fall. And I was very interested in history, even though I was a nursing major, but I had never taken a theology class, never once learned about theology. And this course was engaging Christianity and Islam together in dialogue. So it was really cool to see how that morphed into what I know about history. And it went to show me that, you know, people are built of so many different facets of themselves. We're so multidimensional that how you read history also needs to be read through the lens of theology, also through philosophy or education. Like, all of these different areas kind of combine together into who you are as a person. And so I think that interdisciplinary approach to learning is something I'd never been exposed to before. And the ability to reflect in class, to have fun assignments and like learn about these things without feeling the pressure of like needing to know facts and repeat them back. And also having both of my professors like acknowledge that I'm not one of these majors. I'm probably not going to take maybe another class because my schedule is pretty full anyway. But it was really fun to engage with that. And then for my final project, I was able to kind of analyze how within both areas, Christianity and like the British Empire and Islam and the Ottoman Empire, and how they both view health and sanitary conditions and water and that sort of stuff as purity. So I was able to do a project on that, knowing that I'm going into a field about nursing and how you care for others. So it's really cool to bring what I am studying into this classroom space, but also take what I learned in these classes and bring it into the hospital space with me, where I'm working with people of different faith backgrounds, from different socioeconomic statuses, from different geographic regions too. So it's really helped me all around.
One of the things I think we're all hopeful for when we teach first-year students, whether it's in the renewed courses, again, perspectives, pulse, is a sense of belonging for freshmen. when they get here, a community. And we often get that feedback from first years when they take these kinds of courses, that a community does build and they feel a part of BC. And we hope that also has some formative educational value as well, because as soon as you feel like you belong, you feel like you can participate and you can have a voice in our community as well. So would each of you actually perhaps comment on that experience your first year and maybe where it led you into now?
So enduring questions classes are only 18 people, and since it's a set of paired courses, it's a lot of time you're spending with the same people in the same room. I actually met one of my oldest friends who's sitting in the back row after our first truth-telling class. Hi, Bridget. And I mean, like, it's a class, like, you work together, you study together, but I think the nature of our classes, it invited a lot of like thinking together. Like, we would be talking about random things, and it's beyond just me and Bridget, it's our entire friend group, and we'd be like, truth telling. And she just, yeah. So I think that was unique about those set of courses, and just having 18 people in general. It was truly, like, I think very different from a lot of the other courses that I took my first semester, especially as a STEM student. My first class ever that I walked into was ecology and evolution, and I was sitting in the back row because I was late, and there were 300 people there. So I just really appreciated that aspect.
I would also describe like the Enduring Questions, Complex Problems courses as a safe space, just because you are with those people for a good chunk of the week together, and you also have like a little break in between, usually like the first and the second class. They usually go one after the other, so that's a time where you can like take out snacks and actually just socialize with the people, which doesn't happen in every class. So I thought that was unique. Another thing is like the group projects and like collaboration that I think is inherent in these courses. Even like in maternity and neuroscience, which I took with Professor Case-Bolt and Dr. Black, even in that course where like the end of the year we had a research paper to work on that we were like working on throughout the whole semester, it was all about collaboration. We would meet in small groups and talk about how our research was going, what cases we found that we thought were interesting, how we were incorporating like the different lessons into our research paper. And a lot of that actually like helped us finish the papers. A lot of that was like, oh my goodness, I'm only on page 2 and I haven't found this thing I'm looking for. And then someone might like pipe up and be like, oh, well, like I just read this study the other day, like this could be like tangentially related to what you want to write about. And kind of like building off that was definitely helpful. And I think definitely like built a sense of community, like we were all in it together. And then in terms of like a safe space, I think because it was like quite a delicate topic, like we were talking about social issues with maternal health and maternal mortality, infant mortality, like having an open like and safe space for people to voice their concerns about that, and even like their own concerns. Like I found myself at many times just saying to the people in my class, like, wow, childbirth is scary, like that's crazy, like, and like just being able to have those conversations while you're learning so much about this thing that no one in the class really knows about, I found, really amazing and fostered the community.
Yeah, I think it was like a really great introduction to what Boston College is. It's a place to be formed not only academically, but also as a person. And so how I kind of found that relating to our course was that through our course, we were also, all the three of us were part of the Justice and the Common Good Living Learning community, which was housed in Gonzaga Hall, and it's still running to today. But that was a really great opportunity to take kind of the learning and formation that we could gain from the classroom and bring it into our residential space. So you're seeing the same people in the hallways, you're having small group sessions in our common spaces, and talking kind of about like what Lauren and Foday said, like you're having that chance to build that community together and also talk about these like bigger issues that are like plaguing the world today, like Lauren was saying, maternal and fetal health or food security or anything like that. You know, we had conversations that ranged that whole span, but we also had conversations about like, who are you as a person? Like, what gifts do you have? What talents do you have? And how can you have those things that you enjoy and that you like and that you're good at affect the work you do and how you can change the world? So I think that was a really like a big moment for me to like think of education outside of the sense of just like, I need to know this stuff, but like this is how I should live, this is how I should be, and this is who I can become. And so I think we kind of formed that all together through a lot of different opportunities, academic or social. And that is really what made this such like a life-changing, reflective experience for me my freshman year.
If you could go back and tell your freshman selves one piece of advice, there's a lot of first years in the room actually, what would your advice be?
I would tell myself something that Professor Adair told me, I think right before my first oral exam, or after my first oral exam, where it was a time for me personally. It was just a quite interesting experience overall, but I was like, I had a lot of ideas and I couldn't quite like articulate them the way I wanted to, and like I was writing papers and then I'd look at the paper and I'd be like, I don't like this, and I'd go away from it. But Professor Adair, right before my first oral exam, she sat me down and she was like, you're taking this class or any course because you need to learn the material in it. If you were an expert in anything you were taking already, there would be no point of you being here in the first place. So that really helped me like not freak out when I was doing not everything I wanted to do perfectly. I feel like a lot of Boston College students, by nature of being accepted into Boston College, are quite neurotic, and I needed that like little pushback to really like settle in to the rest of my coursework. I mean, even now.
So my little like advice to my freshman year self would probably be that it's okay to be afraid, because freshman year you kind of think you see everyone around you and everyone seems to be doing really like fun stuff. Like when you bump into someone in the hallway, they're like, oh my gosh, we just did this and it was so great, and you're like, wow, I just sat in my room and was like, well, like, okay, I'll go shower now. Like, I guess, like, we'll find something to do. Like, everyone acts like they have it figured out, and, like, maybe some people do, but it's actually okay to be afraid and a little bit anxious about the whole first year experience, and actually opening up to people makes people more comfortable to talk about that stuff, and fosters a community where it's okay to be a little bit anxious about a test you have coming up, or that you're not going to all the social events you think you should. I definitely found that with the JCG LLC. There were many times where, like, after one of our pod meetings, I'd go to Mac with like Aidan or Foday and be like, I don't have anything figured out, like this is crazy. And like that uncomfortability is actually like where growth comes from. So I think that's something really important to keep in mind, that when you feel that way about yourself, it's time for a bit of self-reflection, and then you will eventually find growth. So one of the things I started doing freshman year was journaling, partly because of Professor Shlala, who encourages journaling all the time, and partly because I got a journal in Dr. Black's class. So started journaling and working through like a lot of things. Whenever you feel anxious, like I would suggest to do that. Somehow, like you don't have to think about your emotions too much. You're like very concentrated on what you're writing, at least for me, that it just kind of flows out. And then you read it back and you're like, that is exactly how I feel. Like, that's crazy. So yeah, I would recommend to just like sit in that uncomfortable space for a little bit and reflect. It's okay to not have it all figured out. Like, no one does. So I still don't. Like, it's a process, and I think that is life, basically. So yeah.
Yeah, I'd kind of just build off that and say, like, give yourself some grace. You hear a bunch of people that are like, college is the best 4 years of your life, and they're asking you questions like, what are you doing afterwards? Like, you don't have it all figured out yet. And you're like, how is this the best 4 years of my life when it's midnight and I'm in O'Neill Library doing all this homework? And so I think it's the chances to like grow as a person, spiritually, socially, and kind of navigate how you want to navigate it. Don't put any extra pressure on yourself, because there's already the pressure to, you know, perform to a certain standard or to meet a certain academic criteria. But I think just giving yourself some grace and enjoying yourself when you're enjoying yourself, and doing fun things when you can, because it's not always that deep. Sometimes you just need to take a step back and enjoy what BC has to offer, because there's just so much here. And I think a lot of freshmen, myself included, will feel so like overwhelmed during freshman year and then so over-involved senior year that sometimes it's hard to just sit back and enjoy everything that you have here at BC. So give yourself some grace.
A recent alum, in response to the question, what did you think of the course, said, mandatory for graduation, necessary for growth. And I think that should be our new motto going forward. But let's turn to your faculty now, who, as I said, were a little bit surprised, I think, about the impact 4 long years ago that their courses may have made on you. So can I ask Professor Adair and Professor Zeller-Garcia, I'll pass the mic to you both. Maybe you can stand up so people can see you. What made you even create an enduring question pair? How did that go?
We know we'll be redundant if we tell this because Sylvia and I went to college together, so look around. You might someday teach a class with one of your friends. When I came to Boston College, Sylvia and I would have lunch occasionally and talk about what we were reading, what we were teaching, and although we were in different fields, we're both writers, we're both interested in history. Sylvia has more cred there than me, I think. And we would swap books already. So we were, in a way, already building this class because of the way, I think, the overlaps we have in how we think about the world and the written word. And so before the new core happened, there were focus groups and discussions, and when all that came up, we were already talking about it, and so we were in the first cohort to develop this class. The term truth-telling came from Sylvia, though, so I'll pass it to you.
Did?
I think so.
Oh, I don't remember that, unfortunately.
The telling came from you. And to Foday's point about how rich the subject is, it's easy to forget in a word like truth-telling, the telling part, and to focus on the truth. That came from Sylvia.
I really regret now that I have wiped all of that from my memory. I can't remember how I came up with telling. But I do know that we came up with this concept well before sort of truth-telling and the lack of truth-telling was a thing in the public consciousness. And I think we felt that the core question, the enduring question of our course, how do you tell the truth about the past, is a question we struggle with. It's a question I certainly struggle with in history. I read things, I expect a certain degree of empirical fact-finding, but I also expect invention in history. And so if you're expecting invention, where does the truth-telling come in? So I think that there was always this sense of restlessness for both of us in the work that we do about how truth is necessary and elusive at the same time. And I remember in that conversation where we had lunch, was it Amitav Ghosh? Amitav Ghosh was the kind of linchpin of our conversation, a book that we had both read and found very provocative and that overlapped perfectly in these ways.
Thanks so much. So one of the features of the Enduring Questions courses is 4 reflection sessions every semester. For the Complex Problems courses, there's a reflection session every week. I think we have a reflection session group here possibly today with the Complex Problem course. Hi, everyone. So we thought it was a unique opportunity, Professor DeLong-Bas and I, to use the reflection sessions specifically geared to theology. And I'm going to have her speak to that since she created them. But I think they had a big impact, and it was an unexpected forum for it.
It really was an unexpected forum, and Elizabeth was the one who had recommended to me, you should think maybe about including some examens for these classes. And because I was teaching 2 faith traditions, I had to think about how to construct them in a way that was appropriate for both traditions, but would also be meaningful to students who didn't have any formal relationship to a faith tradition, and how we could take this and make this a meaningful experience that would create space for students to think about deep questions that are facing our society. And so we looked at the syllabi and selected particular themes that we thought would resonate with the students, thinking about questions related to justice, violence, gender dynamics, thinking about prayer and spirituality. In one of my other courses, I also use environmental themes. And then to take these examens and use them as an opportunity for students to take a much-needed mental health break. One thing you probably have experienced in high school and that continues into college is this tremendous sense of pressure. There's all this stuff that you have to do and all of these things that you have to get done. When you have an opportunity for a class to go outside and take a walk and look around and notice things that are around you, or to think about contemporary events that are bothering you, and to have an opportunity to discuss those with peers and to journal about them too, so that it's a matter of conversation and also thinking and reflecting on your own. That I think that became particularly meaningful because you all were freshmen the year that everything was online and you were at your computers all the time, and so trying to think about how to get you up and away from your desks. I included, normally with the examens, they are something that you do in silence and in stillness, but it seemed to me that this was a moment where movement was more needed. And so we had some stretching, some Tai Chi, a little bit of yoga, so ways of stretching the body and relaxing a little bit from all of the time we were spending hunched over our computers staring at each other on Zoom. And so it was really meaningful to me to read through the evaluations afterwards and to find how much the students appreciated that time to have 20 minutes or half an hour to really think about all of these things and what it meant to them personally. And it also became an opportunity then to build personal relationships with the students, because they knew that I was going to read these reflections and that I would respond to them, and that could open conversations where we needed them, or to be able to point students to resources that were available to them that they might not have known about. So it was another way of connecting them to the broader community here at Boston College. And so it's something I've continued in the courses ever since.
And in fact, in student evaluations that year, for those of us who lecture or lead discussion, the reflection sessions were actually some of the most valuable pieces that the students preferred that year. So that was really, really something. So Professor Black, as a professor in the School of Social Work, and actually faculty from across all of the schools at Boston College teach in the renewed core, could you talk a little bit about your experience getting the opportunity to teach undergraduates, and perhaps how that affects some of your research or other teaching?
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Yes, so I'm a professor in the School of Social Work. We are a graduate program, and when I came to BC years ago, I had hoped to also teach undergrads. It got me really excited. I remembered my 4 years as an undergrad, and a call came out, I think it was 2018, about the enduring questions and complex problems that I believe went to all faculty. And my first question, which sort of resonates, I feel like, with what some of the students are saying, is, do I belong, right? Like, is this something for me that I can kind of dig into? I don't know many faculty in other departments. And so I think my experience paralleled the students' experience their first year as well, trying to reach out. And so I did reach out, and I said, I am happy to be paired with anyone, really. Just give me a space to talk, to learn, to grow. My area, I'm in social work. My background is in education and neuroscience and psychology. And I was just ready and very curious. And so my first course that I taught was actually not the one that Lauren took. It was a different course on looking at theology, philosophy, and neuroscience together. And so I put my sort of name out there, and I said, is there anybody else who wants to partner with me? And I don't know if anybody remembers being in PE when you were younger and you were sort of waiting to be called on, but that was my experience. And I thought, humility is really important in this space as well, a lifelong journey. And so I was paired with a phenomenal faculty member, and I said, let me do it again. And so I put myself out there again. And it was really exciting to be able to, I think, both work with faculty from different disciplines and different buildings and different perspectives. What counts as knowledge, for example, is a question that we were able to talk about, and for whom and when and what contexts. Where do we meet at the core? So the overlapping of really that Venn of what do we value in education and pedagogy? How do we want students to be transformed by the time they leave our classroom? So the idea of backwards design. So all of that to me felt so fruitful and such an amazing opportunity. And to get back to your part of your question is I was really excited to be able to teach first-year students, remembering back to my early years as an undergrad and trying to figure out, what am I interested in and how do I do something with that? I felt like I had so many interests. and the students would come to office hours, and I think it's, again, an amazing opportunity for students to be able to get to know one another, to get to know their faculty really well, and they would use office hours, at least with me, to take time to reflect on, this is what I thought my journey would be, now I'm wondering about this career and that career, and what can you tell me? And I said, remain curious. I said, keep doors open, because what I do now, and the title that I have in educational neuroscience in social work, is somebody who's able to partner with the School of Theology and Ministry on a proposal and a project, to my mind, didn't exist. At least I didn't know it when I was 18 or 19. So just remain open in that way. So that's also been a really exciting journey for me, and to work with students in that space.
Anything you want to let your professors know? There may be some skeptics as to whether these courses really did change your lives. Was that a gimmick, or is there anything in there?
In looking back, and I don't know how else to put this, I kind of feel like I was experimented on. I honestly don't know how to explain that better. I just think it was interesting. I mean, we've already mentioned that if we wanted to talk about what truth-telling is, it would take the entire, it would take more than a semester. It would take my entire college career, and longer than that. But to put it in short, I feel like both of my professors put a lot of intention into the syllabus in terms of breaking down the assumptions that when you come into college and you're 17, 18 years old, hold about what truth is, what objectivity is, what empiricism is, how they operate in different spheres. And I think that I've been able to use that framework and think about how I approach different disciplines across all the classes I've taken in the core. I've taken other renewed core classes, and in my major classes, a neuroscience major. Because in the intro classes, I live and breathe STEM textbook, but once you start getting into journals and stuff, it's a lot more dense, and methods are more important, and you have to care about what and how you're interacting and what you think the author's expecting you to get. And it's very complicated, and I don't want to get into it right now, but I do think that it was just a great start to my time here. And I think despite some of the niche work that we read, I think the questions and ideas that are in them are things that stuck with me throughout my time at Boston College. Last semester, I wrote a paper about a book that I read in truth-telling in literature, and it was an entirely different approach to it, but it was still those fundamental principles of how do people construct narratives, and how do people do lots of things with their words. So for that, I am grateful. So thank you.
I know I talked already about journaling and feeling a bit afraid freshman year, and then also about learning that I love to learn through this class. But one of the biggest things I think, and I think Dr. Black knows this because I wrote about this in my research paper, was learning about stress and anxiety in Dr. Black's class, especially how it affects maternal health, was really eye-opening to me. I struggle with anxiety, and it made it so much less scary to learn how it actually operates within the human body and how it affects the brain. So I really took that with me. So I know that, oh my gosh, I'm feeling so anxious now, my cortisol levels are rising. And I know that if I calm myself down, those chemicals will also calm themselves down, and then we'll be back to a stable kind of state. So I think that's one thing I definitely took from this course, is that, first of all, childbirth, I know I said it was scary earlier, but it's a lot less scary now that I've learned about it in an academic setting. Also, I would say I wrote my final research paper about introducing music into the hospital setting. I read about studies about cancer patients, how their whole emotional health had been improved during chemo because of the introduction of music into their treatment plan. So I wanted to take that idea and see how it would be effective in a childbirth scenario. And I know they play music in the NICU sometimes, but I was interested in how that actually helps the brain. So I wrote my whole research paper about that and learned a lot about the effects of stress on the brain. And it really just helped me understand. I kind of learned about myself that when I learn about things, I'm not scared about them anymore. So I also also think I'm a bit of like a hypochondriac, like just putting that out there. So this class was very helpful for me because it was like, actually, you don't need to be afraid of all of this stuff. If you put it in like a clinical like setting and you read studies about it, like it's not as scary anymore. And it also made me less scared of myself and my own anxiety. I was like, I actually can like have some control over this. It's not just get to this super high anxious level and there's no way to get back down. You're actually entirely in control throughout the whole process. So I think in that way, it definitely changed my life. I learned a lot of ways how to like cope with those feelings, and then learning like the science behind it definitely helped.
Yeah, I think the effect for me was kind of twofold. The first one being that relationship that I've had with myself. I think I gained a lot from those examens that Professor DeLong-Bas talked about, because I'd never taken the time to like sit back and think about myself. I'd always been like, what tasks am I doing? What involvements am I in? What are other people getting up to? And I'd never been challenged to like think and reflect deeply on myself. So that was really altering for the rest of the time I've been at BC, and I think going forward in my life it'll be really changing too. But also it's changed the way I have relationships with other people. A lot of these courses I've learned and have like kind of funneled into my nursing practice and how I treat patients in the hospital as people with a diagnosis, not a diagnosis. And I think a lot of patients really appreciate that, whether you're a kid who's sick with cystic fibrosis, or you're a mother giving birth, or you're a patient with schizophrenia. Like all these different areas that I'm seeing in the hospital setting are also correlating to what I've learned in the classroom about being there for people in whatever way they may need you to be, and being able to engage with those different determinants of health, whether it's the job you have, the food you can buy, the education you have, the resources you can attain, your transportation to and from the hospital. Like all those things really have factored into the way I treat people while I'm on the floor. And I think that has also correlated into my friendships and my connections with classmates and professors and faculty at BC too. So that's really what I've gained out of it.
Thanks so much. I think just in the relationships that the students develop with the faculty, the material that they studied, the interactions, the community, the beauty of our campus, one of the things that students also tell us is that through the core they find God in all things. And whatever that means to each of you, it's certainly clear that there's been an experience here that made you know yourselves better, figure out what you want to be after you graduate, and have relationships that will endure.
Thank you so much to each and every one of you for being part of the conversation, and for those of you that are here. Thank you so much for coming, and look forward to seeing you again. Elizabeth, thank you.